In July 2021, world-renowned ride manufacturer Intamin out of Liechtenstein debuted the Ultrasurf, a brand new, exciting roller coaster model that was meant to be a successor for their Surf Rider, which first debuted in 2007. Rides like Avatar Airbender or Timmy's Half-Pipe Havoc at the Nickelodeon Universe theme parks stand around 70 feet tall, with a simple U shape just launching back and forth. The Ultrasurf is over double the height, at 144 feet. Maxing out at 60 miles per hour. It was designed to offer an alternative to larger parks who are looking for a similar model but with a higher capacity. Because it only operated with one train, there's only so many places that realistically could install this. You only have 12 guests at a time, 6 people per gondola. The Ultrasurf offers 20 at a time, 10 per gondola. And wouldn't you know it, but we didn't have to wait too long before we learned of our first official installation of the Ultrasurf, which would be Georgia Surfer coming to Six Flags Over Georgia in 2024. Which brings us to today for Georgia Goldrusher opening in 2025. Wouldn't you know it, but a lot changed in between the announcement in 2023 and its debut. The ride suffered from a series of construction delays, and because of a certain merger between the Six Flags and Cedar Fair theme park chains, the decision was made to postpone Georgia Surfer until 2025, where during the off-season it would receive a brand new theme and a complete repaint. The blue and orange color scheme is gone, the attraction is now brown, and sports an old western gold mining theme. It was certainly a surprise to say the least, but in the end, I do believe that they made the right decision because presentation of Georgia Goldrusher was overall really well done. Six Flags Over Georgia to me has always been a middle-of-the-pack Six Flags theme park. They do a lot of things well, but weren't quite reaching that full potential, in my opinion. And thematics were never really their forte. Cedar Fair, on the other hand, has been putting an emphasis on story and thematics across the chain the past couple years. When you visit Georgia Goldrusher and you've seen some of those other lands, you forget that you're in a Six Flags park. Georgia Goldrusher feels new and fresh. Now, I'm not going to pretend like it's the most elaborate presentation or anything. Overall, it is still relatively simple. They installed a bunch of water troughs outside the entrance, cascading down a waterfall. Lots of old rusted metal pieces to the side of the queue. Plenty of boxes and barrels filled with dynamite in the station. Certainly more than what the original Six Flags chain would have done, but still relatively minimalist. It's like classy minimalist theming. The attraction has a vibe, and it works. That's important when you only are dealing with 590 feet of track. Georgia Goldrusher is a short ride. There's only 3 elements total. The 2 spikes and an airtime hill in between. That is certainly more than the original Surf Riders, but it almost more so reminds me of a plussed version of like a Zamperla Disco. Both attractions feature a similar shape and have rotating vehicles. But if you ask me, this is a credit and those are not. Primarily because this is gravity dependent during those spikes. Georgia Goldrusher uses linear synchronous motors or LSMs to propel the vehicle up to speed, first pushing towards the airtime hill, then back up the spike closest to the station, dropping down at full speed over the airtime hill, across the water and up this larger spike in the back, and then you just go back and forth until you eventually come to a stop. You only reach that max peak on the spikes twice, which makes sense when you gotta keep the line moving. So when you experience Georgia Goldrusher, I think it's important to have your expectations in the right place. I don't think anyone's pretending that Georgia Goldrusher is going to be like the latest and greatest thing. It's still a relatively simple concept, but it is an improvement over previous models and objectively a great fit for this park. They did not have a launch coaster or a spinning coaster. And with a very diverse portfolio of roller coasters, several of which are pretty intense rides, they needed something that was family friendly, offered variety, and is just fun. And I think you do get that with Georgia Goldrusher. I see this ride as a stepping stone to work your way up from, let's say, Dahlonega Mine Train or Great American Scream Machine to Riddler Mindbender or Daredevil Dive. Those other rides might seem a little intimidating because of the steep drop or loops. Sure, Georgia Goldrusher has those pretty much vertical spikes, but kids can look out at this attraction, see everything out in front of you, and easily tell what they are about to experience. And I think the ride experience also offers a level of comfortability. You can seat your family or friends on opposite gondolas facing each other and then watch their facial expressions change throughout the ride. And that is pretty cool. Most roller coasters, you are riding side by side with 1 to 3 other passengers. Here, in theory, if you're facing the other gondola, you could be sitting next to your friends and looking out at your friends. It's a simple concept that becomes really effective when you hit those spikes and everyone floats up out of their seat. I had the opportunity to experience Georgia Goldrusher multiple times, sitting in a variety of different locations, and I might have enjoyed facing the other guests more so than facing the track. The main advantage to facing the track, in my opinion, is just when you get to the end of the spike, you truly realize how close you are to the edge. And these are also not any ordinary spikes. The profiling offers a slight curve at the top that almost feels like a sideways airtime bump. And I was curious how that was gonna feel. And if you're seated on the side of the gondola that hits that max point, you get like a form of sideways airtime. And that was cool. It made me glad that it wasn't just 2 straight spikes like you get with the surf riders. Combine that with an airtime hill that offers some very solid floater airtime, a launch that has a little bit of a punch to it, and water jets that add to the visual without soaking guests. I think you have a pretty mesmerizing attraction that ends up kind of satisfying everyone. I may not place this super high in the lineup of Over Georgia roller coasters, and that's okay. I would still call this a successful addition to Over Georgia, especially considering the plot of land that this was built in desperately needed something. It was vacant for way too long. It was the obvious spot for a future roller coaster, and I'm thrilled that it's finally here. So for Georgia Goldrusher's final score, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a very solid attraction. Again, not mind-blowing in any way, but generally speaking, it's well done. What could have been better? In my opinion, I feel like the water jets could have been a bit more effective. I feel like they're kind of underwhelming at the moment. If you look in the original Ultra Surf animation, you can see the full potential of how this could be set up. And I feel like it could be a lot more elaborate while still not getting guests wet. Because remember, even though this was called an Ultra Surf, it is not designed to be a water ride, which I think is also partially why they renamed it from Georgia Surfer, because it did come with a connotation that this was a water ride. I mean, the vehicle literally looks like a surfboard, but I don't think anyone anymore is calling it a water ride. So it at least helps with that confusion. It still looks like a surfboard. I think if they wanted to update it to give it more of like a wood finish, that could fix that problem, so it looks more like you're panning for gold and not surfing across gold. And I'm not gonna lie, it would have been nice to see a bit more of a spin. It seemed like that was probably the #1 disappointment when this opened. And the reality is that it certainly is weight dependent. If you were to put guests on one side and no one on the other, then yeah, you're gonna spin more. So it does offer re-rideability. But to my understanding, as of the official opening, it is not operating at its full potential, and the Intamin will be on site soon to improve the spin, so you might get a more dynamic ride experience if you come back to experience it down the road. And I think that will only add to the thrill. But in the grand scheme of things, these are minor adjustments that sure would improve it, but the average everyday guest is not really going to be affected by it. After multiple rides and talking to a lot of people, it seemed like everyone enjoyed it, so it wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing a few more of these in the future, in particular at parks that are looking for a good stepping stone attraction with a limited footprint. So let me know down in the comments below if you've had the opportunity to experience Georgia Goldrusher at Six Flags Over Georgia, what you think of it, if you agree with the points that I brought up, and stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.